I'd like you to think about your life. I'd like you to choose a memory from your childhood. Where were you? What were you doing? Who was with you? Was this you? Was this you? No, but seriously, where were you and what were you doing? Were you happy? Were you angry? Were you ecstatic or lost? And to keep this suspension going a little bit longer on this year's TEDx stage, I'd like you to think about the following scenario. A boy loses his parents. They're murdered in front of him, cold blood, when they were on their way to dinner. This boy goes on to inflict pain and violence on people while trying to manage the darkness in his heart. Does anybody know who I'm talking about? You got it. Batman. Another young boy, a bullied bookworm, isolated and unpopular, an orphan who lives with his aunt and uncle, discovers strengths and power that he never knew he had, and he struggles to use it responsibly. Who am I talking about? You got it, Spider-Man. Peter Parker. Another young man loses his parents to their choices. He's placed into a new world with new parental figures. And while trying to grow up in our society, he discovers strengths he never knew he had. He chooses to fight hard, no matter the risk. Who am I talking about? No, it's me. And I believe in superheroes, but not just these fictitious characters you see in the comic books and on television, but every day, all the time, superheroes. And I want to share with you how superheroes saved my life. If it weren't for the superheroes in my life, I would not be on this red dot today. My story's not unique. In fact, it happens all the time. I was born to a toxic environment that rapidly deteriorated my childhood. My memories are filled with domestic violence, substance abuse, neglect, and far too much responsibility on a child. We grew up in severe poverty. I raised my siblings because we were left alone to grow alone. We were known as the smelly kids because we didn't regularly have running electricity or running water. When my life came to an abrupt halt, my father caused a fatal car crash while he was driving behind the wheel under the influence of alcohol. He was sentenced 15 years to life in prison. I was 10 years old. I felt as though my world was caving in around me. When I found myself, again, after jazz band practice, waiting to be picked up, when I heard a familiar voice offer me a ride home. You see, I hated always being the last person to be picked up. But what I hated even more was people offering me a ride home because they knew no one was coming. When my band teacher, he gave me a ride home. And I remember feeling embarrassed on the way home of the shambles that we lived in. We got to the house, I jumped out of the car as fast as I could, and I ran to the door, and I knocked on the door, trying to get in, and it was locked. I waved him on, feeling embarrassed, and I went around back hoping to get in. The back doors were locked, and I'd broken a window the week before and was in trouble for that, so I wasn't allowed to go in through the windows. So I just hid and cowered. When I remember my geeky, awesome band director came into my backyard, and he saw me hiding and cowering, and all he said was, "Do you want to go to McDonald's?" And on our way to McDonald's, we called my friends, and we went back to his house to watch a Star Wars marathon. Sounds like a superhero to me. Let's call him Mr. Conductor. While dealing with the frustrations and the anger around my father's choices in his incarceration, I found myself in the classroom trying to manage. You see, I'd lost almost all control over my life. I was starting to become quietly angry. When a girl came up to me during class from similar poverty, similar life circumstances, and she told me that her father was sexually abusing her. Well, I believe in superheroes. So I decided to take control of that circumstance. And I found a phone in the classroom, and I called that father, and I told him if he did it again, I'd kill him. Well, this was the era and birth of Star 69. And the phone rang, the principal was informed, and I found myself in a far too familiar seat in his office. You see, I'd been there before for struggling to manage my anger and my behavior. He asked me what I did, and I told him. He asked me what I said, and I told him. You see, he was an active member of our community. In fact, he was on city council. And he knew the context of my life. He knew the trauma. He knew the traumatic events. He could have very easily called the police or had me expelled for an act of violence on a person. But he didn't. Instead, he just listened to me. And he understood the context. And he told me that we would work on it. And he sent me back to class, and he promised me that he would deal with the situation with my friend. Sounds like a superhero to me. Let's call him the mayor. Feeling like my life was out of control, I was getting ready to start high school. When my mother, who's battled addiction and negative choices her whole life, she was gone on a binge. See, a couple-day binge, 1 to 2 days, was not a big deal. But at this point, we were starting to get worried. And so I did what any kid would do, and I talked to the police. Eventually, they found her, and eventually she was arrested and placed into a treatment facility. By this point, I felt as though I was all alone. My mom was in rehab with my little brother. My dad was in prison for his life. My sister was placed with my grandma. And we were so fortunate to have grandparents and people around us that supported us. My grandparents, my uncles, my aunts. They took us in. They fed us. They did their best to manage our needs. But I was getting to the point where I was pretty angry. And I didn't want to be around people, so I found myself isolating all the time. And when I wasn't isolated, I was involved in everything, in band, in drama, in football, and I could get involved in everything because I didn't want to go home. And one friend in particular, he was actually connected to me by my band director. He brought me to the family that I'd always wanted. Not only did he have his stuff together and he was smart, and he always did his homework, and he had his backpack. But he had a mom that supported him. She was there for everything. And he had a sister. Whoa. I gave away half the story. Well, shucks. I'm going the wrong way. Take me back. Thank you for letting me be vulnerable with you on this stage. He had a sister, and she was cute. And she had everything a young man my age wanted. No, not that. But she became my best friend. She cared for me. She treated me like I was just a normal kid. And I remember, we grew up off of commodities and church food and welfare food and the nutrition at school almost my whole life. And let me tell you, thank goodness for it, because it was a whole lot better than the peanut butter and jelly quesadillas we had at home. When I remember that little girl, I didn't ask for this, you see. She brought me a lunch to school. She brought me my own lunch. I never had my lunch made for me like that. She made me a chicken sandwich. I remember it so clearly. Barbecue chicken and pepperoncinis and pineapples. Just made with love, right? Sounds like a superhero to me. Let's call her Super Chicken Sandwich Girl. It takes a superhero to look past behavior and see the needs that are driving it. Because behind all behavior, positive or negative, there is a need driving it. It takes a superhero to grab a hold of those people that are in need and to never let them go, no matter how hard they push on you. And it takes a superhero to dig deep beyond yourself for the interest of others. Superheroes heal superheroes. My band director, who's sitting right there, not only did he teach me the coping skills about stage presence and being a performer, but he made me feel seen in a world where I felt alone. He taught me that not all adults will eventually fail you. The mayor, he was beyond his years. And instead of saying, "What is wrong with that kid?" he said, "What is going on with that kid?" He understood the context of my life before pulling the trigger. And that little girl, my best friend, my wife, the mother of my children, and my lifelong partner for 20 years. She saw my heart. She never gave up on me. And now she shows me what it means to be the most amazing mom I've ever seen. Shoo! Superheroes heal superheroes. In a world where we think, got a problem, take a pill. Got a behavior, you need a diagnosis. I'm here to tell you, it doesn't take some magical clinical wizard to see that when people are alone, they'll do what they have to be seen. When people feel threatened, they'll do what they have to be safe. Batman needed to feel justice and feel in control over his life. Peter Parker needed to feel normal. He needed to feel like his life mattered. I needed to feel connected, control, and to be seen. And I was healed by the most therapeutic power we have as human beings. Everyday superheroes. Batman was healed by Alfred. Peter Parker was healed by Mary Jane. And I was healed by, you guessed it, people just like you. So now I want you to think back to your life. I want you to think of those moments. Who was with you? What were you feeling? Was it your band teacher? Was it a teacher? Was it a friend? Who was it for you? I'm going to leave you with this. Are you seeing behavior and missing needs? Have you discovered your superhero power yet? I did. And I've devoted my life and my career to wrapping people around our most vulnerable youth and families. You see, in our world full of siloed systems, dichotomized perspectives, and systems that are just so archaic, it's hard to build people around people that are in need. Especially because most superheroes don't like to be seen in the limelight. So I, as a system transformation champion and consumer qualified by experience, I'm lighting the beacon. Superheroes, where are you? We need you. And to all the young people and the families that need to be seen, and to all the unthanked superheroes, I see you. You got this. And thank you.